Okay, we are now live on Facebook.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jason. So I want to welcome everyone to our Occidental Town Hall meeting this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to try to keep my intro really brief because we have a packed agenda this evening, really designed to give you updates from local governments and to answer your questions. In order to facilitate an effective Q&A, because our agenda is so packed, we're going to ask you to use the Q&A function on Zoom. So just go ahead and enter those questions in real time, and then both will try to have our panelists respond to you in real time. And then at the end, we'll have an opportunity to provide any further explanations or verbal explanations after we've gone through all of the presentations. So I am joined tonight. First of all, I want to recognize my awesome 5th District staff, Field Representative Elise Weiland, and my District Director, Leo Chi. Thank you so much for being part of this team. And then I am also joined by the inimitable Fire Chief Lenardi of Occidental. I've got Assistant General Manager Mike Thompson from Sonoma County Water Agency, our Parks Manager, David Robinson, our Director of Transportation and Public Works, Johannes Hoevertsz, and Jorge Rodriguez, who is the amazing person behind our evacuation drill in Occidental and who really coordinated all of that with the Department of Emergency Management. Although we have a packed agenda, I do want everyone to know that we have no specific agenda that we are trying to force on you in terms of community solutions. I've received some emails about panic, about different kind of solutions that are being proposed. And I want you to know that we are here tonight truly to listen to the community and to try to facilitate solutions for some of the top community concerns that we're hearing. So not coming in here with any angle other than solutions. And with that, unless Elise or Leo, you have anything you want to add, we can go ahead and jump into the presentations. Great. So I will hand over the virtual microphone to Mike Thompson, our Assistant GM over at Sonoma Water.
Thank you, Supervisor Hopkins, and welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm going to provide a little update on our efforts to bring more affordable wastewater rates to your town of Occidental. So as you all know, the wastewater is a challenge in Occidental. It's served by the Occidental County Sanitation District, and it serves about 100 properties. Many of those are restaurants, and they represent about 250 single-family homes. As I think you're well aware, you pay the highest sewer rate in the county at over $2,600 per year. The wastewater problems there aren't anything new. We've been working for literally 2.5 decades trying to find affordable solutions to this issue. We've undertaken many projects, many attempts at solutions over the year. All of them ran into issues we couldn't overcome. And so as a result, we were under orders to stop discharging wastewater from treated wastewater from this treatment plant to Dutchville Creek. And so in 2018, we began trucking the wastewater to our airport treatment plant, which is, I can say, an option that Hopkins doesn't like and has strongly encouraged us to find alternate solutions. So we've been working on that. We were approached by the community of Greyton. As you all know, they're located to your east, and they have their own sewer district run by the Greyton Community Service District, and they have about 600 users, and they have the second highest wastewater rates in the county, and also are under some large financial challenges. And so they actually approached us, and we've been working with them for a couple of years to look at ways that these two communities could get connected and work together to each of them solve their wastewater challenges together. So with that, I can share that when the pandemic hit, there was a realization by our board and others that, just kind of anticipating the future, that often infrastructure bills come out of pandemics or out of economic downturns. So the thought was, if such a infrastructure bill came to pass, it would be great to have a project getting close to being shovel ready to take advantage of that federal funding. So in recognition of that, our board approved an agreement for us to study the feasibility of connecting Occidental to Greyton using a small 4 to 6 inch pipeline that would run from the Occidental lift station to the Greyton Community Services District system. So we're right now, the board approved that agreement in April. We're working with a local engineering firm called Brelgy and Race And there we're working to find out how much will it cost to build this pipeline, and then how much will it cost to operate it. Our hope is that this will be a feasible project to construct, and it will actually help bring rate relief to both communities. And in doing so, we finally have a permanent solution to this decades-old issue in Occidental with regard to wastewater treatment. And it'll help both of these communities provide affordable and sustainable wastewater treatment to protect both your communities, human health, and the environment. The study is scheduled to be completed in November. We held a public outreach meeting at the end of June, and we'll be holding another one likely in September after we see the draft report and start to get some of present some of the initial the draft findings. But at this point, no decisions have been made on this. We're still studying the feasibility of it, but again, we hope to have the feasibility study completed in November. And again, we're also have high hopes that this could provide a path to a permanent solution. So anyways, that concludes my quick and short presentation.
Thank you so much, Mike. Really appreciate that. And again, please go ahead and put any questions that you might have in the Q&A function, and we'll do our best to answer those as they come in. I also want to say that I neglected to mention that we are also joined by Jennifer Kuzmar from the Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District. And I also want to acknowledge the invisible foundation on which the 5th District rests, which is Jason Wilson, who is providing all the tech support for this meeting. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Johannes Hoevertsz to talk a little bit about parking and road issues.
Hi, Supervisor Hopkins, Johannes. If you don't mind, I'm going to leave my video off. As you know, I'm currently in Seattle, so I am on my phone on the side of the road, and I'm going to be flipping through my phone and videos and Google Maps just so I know where I am in the presentation. So if you're okay with that, I will start with one-way street proposal. Transportation and Public Works received a request from the Inn at Occidental to work on a one-way street proposal on Church Street between 3rd Street and 2nd Street. We have been working on the feasibility with Chief Lenardi and your office on the viability and feasibility of doing it. And we've come, it's from the Department of Transportation and Public Works perspective, it may work. We probably address some of the parking issues that we have and address some of the other ones that the Inn at Occidental has. So I haven't seen the final design, but we can share that with you when we work with the engineers on the project. But that is where we are with that project. Switching back to the temporary structures. Temporary structures since COVID. And when we first started allowing outdoor dining, the county has allowed what we're calling them parklets. And they are structures within the road right of way to expand the business's needs and allow outdoor dining, especially in the 5th District. And on the 1st District, we've allowed them. In other cases, within the county, they are within Caltrans road right of way. Caltrans has allowed them, the state has allowed them. They're even thinking about allowing them permanently after COVID. For now, the state, I believe, has allowed them until December. So we're planning on sticking with that and then evaluate if we're going to allow them permanent, how to do it in a safely manner. I have been to both Occidental. I've seen the facilities at Negri's, and I have seen the facilities at the Union Hotel. So I have an idea of how they look and how they're functioning in the community. They are a lifeline for businesses, and we're very supportive of the parklets as long as they're safe, how they are now. Going to see the use of the road yard for events. The Transportation and Public Works has a lot that we have agreed to the Occidental Farmers Market to allow to use during Farmers Market's event for parking, because we recognize the need for parking in the community, and we're allowing to use it. The lot is strategically placed for staging materials during our regular work and during disasters. So we don't mind sharing it with the community, but we cannot leave it open for obvious reasons, vandalism, and we don't want people to go move and park there, and then we have a hard time removing people from that lot. So we work with the community, and any event that we need parking, we'll work with the community, we will permit it. But then it has to be for a day, and then we need to close it at night. Road work coming up, evacuations route. We've worked with Chief Lenardi and the community to open Willow Creek Road for evacuation access only. Supervisor Hopkins was grateful enough. She allocated some funding, and we were able to repair 4 or 5 sites that had slides, and we removed some of the trees that were blocking the road. The road is not designed for regular traffic, and it could be a hazard if there's an event because it's narrow. It doesn't have safety, it doesn't meet all the safety requirements that we would like to have on a road. However, for evacuation access and under the direction of fire or sheriff, emergency vehicles can access it. And that is all I have for now, Supervisor Hopkins. Available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Johannes. And I am, because I want to actually apologize. Johannes is on vacation with his wife right now. And so calling in is really just a huge step and, clear evidence of what an amazing public servant you are. So I appreciate that, Johannes. And I want to get you back on the road as quickly as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly read any questions that we have on the topic. I do see that most questions are pertaining to the use of the parking lot, which I think you did answer that. Regarding the need to, the ability for the county to potentially provide that additional parking, but close it up at night. I do have a question from Kitty Brown, which is why have homeowners who live on Church, 2nd and 1st Streets not been notified of the proposed one-way street? There is no safe exit to Bohemian Highway except Church to 3rd Street.
Supervisor Hopkins, we haven't noticed anyone yet because we're evaluating whether we could do it or not. Once we have a plan that is doable and we have a final design, then we're going to be working with the community to show them what we have and maybe improve or address some of the things that we may have missed.
Perfect. So that's a great answer and a great reminder that we are really at the very beginning of this conversation and don't even know whether it's actually technically feasible yet. So this was a question that was asked by the community. We're investigating it and we'll certainly go back to the community before taking any action. I am not seeing any other questions specific to parking or TPW. So thank you so much, Johannes, for calling in. Really, really appreciate that. And we will go ahead and move
Lynda,
on.
Linda, I'm sorry. There was Johannes. Are you still there? There was one about.
I am here.
There was one that was a slightly off-topic one, but it was still a TPW question. Will road bots in the middle of Bittner and Joy Roads be installed for safety during low visibility if we have to leave due to fire or other emergency? So I think it's those reflectors that are in the middle of the road.
Yeah, so we are working with the community on what is a reasonable approach. We know that the normal delineators that we place melt during a fire. We're encouraging the community to leave when they're, when they first know about evacuations. Once we have a fire, it's really difficult to see the delineators. We're trying to work with fire on a reasonable approach, waypoint finding to address tourists in the area and how we can get them out. So I know that there's a lot of talk and our traffic teams are trying to figure out how to do it. I think we're settling, and I need to confirm this, on some metal retroreflective solution that might be a pilot program. But I know we have to do something and we're working on it, Leo.
Super, thank you. That's really interesting.
Great. And I do see one more question, which I believe I can answer. And this was a question from Amy asking, were you saying that Willow Creek is available for public evacuation? And the answer is that is for emergency vehicle access only, which means that we are not actually bringing it up to sort of public access standards, but allowing emergency vehicles to get through in case of a fire and also providing a bit of a, sort of fuel break through actually keeping the road cleared as opposed to having logs run across it. Anything else, Johannes or Chief Lenardi, because I know you've worked on that project as well. Anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that, correct Johannes when he first spoke, that it is not an evacuation route. It was never just, this was just like repeating what you said, fire vehicle access for rescues and for fire. So I want to make sure that that's clear.
Great. So with that, thank you so much, Johannes. I don't have any other, oh, actually there's one last one, sorry, that came in. How can we get a white parking zone installed by the grocery stores? I'm not exactly sure what we mean by white parking zone. Anyone know what that refers to, Johannes? Does that ring a bell?
Is that a loading and unloading zone? I think that's,
Short-term 5 minutes. Actually, they just answered in real time. So yeah,
yeah,
short-term 5
yeah,
minutes.
yeah. We can do that. We can do that. Supervisor Hopkins, let me run it by our guys, and we're looking how to do it.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and close out the questions for Transportation and Public Works. Thank you so much for joining us, Johannes. And then transition over to our community center status update with David Robinson, our parks manager.
Good evening, Supervisor Hopkins and Town of Occidental. Thanks for having me. And yeah, the Occidental Community Center is one of those little gyms out in the town of Occidental that I think everybody knows about. And there's a long history there. I actually, as many of you know, was a camp counselor out there when I was 18 and 19 for 2 summers and worked for the YMCA. And it was a very, very popular summer camp. As many of you know, the YMCA had an agreement with Sonoma County Regional Parks, and unfortunately, right before COVID hit back in 2019, at the end, the YMCA opted to not extend their agreement. And we had a great partnership, but as you may know, the demographics of the town are changing, and they weren't able to support the staffing out there for the youth. At that time, we were working with a couple other operators to help us run the programs out there, to give the community that opportunity to access the facility. And then COVID-19 hit and all community centers were closed. So we've had the community center closed for about a year, gosh, and almost a half, and we're still looking for an operator. The positive news is during that time, we were able to work with the school districts. So Harmony School District, through some of the connections in the community, we're able to hook up with Superintendent Morgan, and we are moving forward tentatively with Harmony being able to operate the community center and provide some of those programs that we've been missing for the past year and a half. We're still in a tentative agreement. I've just given them the professional service agreements that the county parks uses for folks to operate, so they can show us insurance and show us what they have planned. But we're really excited about that partnership. It's a great opportunity for the community. Harmony and the folks out there understand the community. They understand the community center. And so they have a board meeting on August 12th where they're going to run through the final steps and hopefully approve the idea that they will operate that community center. And Parks has put away some money to give it a little lift, as we know it's looking a little tired out there. And so we'll work with that operator to make some improvements and really look forward to the next 5 to 10 years of what that facility can be and how it can impact the community.
Thank you so much for that update. I really appreciate that. With that, I believe it's time to transition over to the Ag Preservation and Open Space District with Jen Kuzmar.
Hi, thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm happy to be here to talk about the matching grant program. I'm going to share my screen. I have just a few slides that so you don't have to look at me. You can look at beautiful open space lands in Sonoma County. And pardon me, there's a loud vehicle. I am not out in Peace Occidental. I am in downtown Santa Rosa. So I'm here just to quickly give an over just a couple minutes, a couple slides about the matching grant program that Ag and Open Space offers. The program is born out of our expenditure plan as an intended to provide funding to public agencies and nonprofits to create open spaces within and near communities. And I should mention all the pictures that we have in the background here are places where we actually have provided funding. So as I said, the program is available to public agencies and 501c3 nonprofits. And we provide funding for acquisition of land, so purchasing property for open space purposes, for natural resource restoration or for urban agriculture. Improvement projects, which can be providing funding for actually doing the development of a public park or something like that, or improvements necessary for the agricultural operation. or any combination of those things. So we can put in money towards the acquisition, we can put in money towards the development, or split it up, or a project can be bringing money to the table. That's the matching part of the matching grant program. And we do have an evaluation criteria and a matrix and a scoring system that we developed in the last funding cycle, where we really try to get at what the intent of the program is. So the most competitive projects are to protect new lands within and near communities, especially places where there aren't existing protected lands. And in particular, something we'll be being really clear about in the next cycle is trying to provide funding in areas that have been disproportionately impacted for lack of access to public spaces. And we want to know that the community, needs these types of projects, and that they've been identified in some way through a public process or other community process. Articulating what are the public benefits of any open space project, just to justify our use of public funds. And then, the more competitive projects can demonstrate a certain amount of readiness or experience in doing these types of projects. And then there's other considerations that we look at. We've considered projects more competitive that are located in communities that burned in recent years or had been impacted by floods, and we'll be having a equity and inclusion component in that future cycles as well, being really explicit about that. It's been a part of the program in the past, but wanting to be really explicit about that in the future. And we run the program every other year, so the next funding cycle kicks off in early 2022. We typically budget about $4 million for the whole program, so that's countywide for the program. Applicants are required to bring some match to the table, or more competitive to bring some match to the table. Up until the last cycle, we had required a 1-to-1 match for the program, but the board asked us to consider having some flexibility, and then we did last funding cycle. And I think it really provides folks to have a more realistic look at what they might actually be able to bring to the table. All of that to say, we'll be kicking off the funding cycle next year in early 2022. We always host at least one public meeting. I assume now that we're all so savvy in a virtual world, we'll be posting videos online and reporting that, maybe offering some virtual options as well. And we always have our materials available on our website. And we evaluate funding applications typically from spring until summer, doing site visits and then presenting them at our board in late summer, early fall. I've put my contact information here at the bottom. I'm always available to, or one of the other acquisition staff, to talk through potential project ideas, what might make a project more competitive, do some brainstorming, and also just kind of understanding what the requirements might be should you be accepted for funding. When we put funding towards a matching grant project, Ag and Open Space does receive a conservation easement so that that land remains protected in perpetuity in that community for the benefit of all. And so with that, that's all I wanted to share. I'm happy to go back to any slides. Otherwise, I'll stop sharing so I can see folks. And thank you again for inviting me to attend tonight.
Thank you so much for presenting. And it's just really critical, I think, for unincorporated communities to be aware of this opportunity. And you really need to start planning now if you're really thinking about moving forward with a grant application next year. So really appreciate the early outreach. And with that, we are going to go ahead and transition to fire preparedness and kind of a download on how our evacuation drill went. So we'll go ahead and hand it over to Jorge and Chief Lenardi to talk about those two things.
Yes, good afternoon, Supervisor Hopkins. Thank you for the invitation to be on the town hall this evening. The Camp Meeker Occidental evacuation exercise report after action was recently completed, and we released and provided a copy of that report to representatives of the participating fire safes, as well as the fire departments, county sheriff's office, county regional parks, who was a participant, as well as county human services department. And before I get into the little details of the report, I just want to give a few reminders for the community who participated there in Camp Meeker, as well as Occidental. First and foremost, the Sebastopol Center for the Arts was only used as part of the exercise, only for the date of June 19th. And it should be considered a default location to go to in the event of an emergency or evacuation. So it was only specific to the exercise that we used that facility. Now, while some locations are pre-identified within our emergency plans, because of the unknowns of that emergency at that particular time, the location of the emergency, the time of day, potential impacts that an area might have. Only those centers or temporary evacuation points, shelters, however you want to call them, only those would be communicated during that emergency. So there's no default location. Having a list available for evacuation planning is not something that we have, only because we don't know when and where that disaster is going to take place. So for those residents who did register online for the exercise, they would have received the exercise message. We did use the SoCo alert system, but it was only limited to that list of those pre-registrations that we did receive. So the emergency contact database was not used during the evacuation exercise, only specific to those who originally registered. So for folks who are registered with SoCo Alert, your information remains within the emergency contact database. But right now it is a good time, and it's a great idea to go in and check and update your contact information into the SoCo Alert system. Go to socoalert.com and you'll see the link there to access your account. Or you can also call the folks at Code Red who manage the SoCo Alert system for us, and give them a call and have them verify your contact information. And I'll give you the phone number here. I'll repeat it twice. 866-939-0911, option 2. Again, it's 866-939-0911, option 2. And you can verify with folks at Code Red about your contact information. And once you register, if you have registered, you know your information is correct, be sure to save the phone number that will appear in the caller ID when a SoCo Alert is sent out. So if you have a caller ID on your cell phone or in your landline in your home, be sure to have the phone number 866-419-5000. I'll say it again, 866-419-5000. That's the number that will appear on the caller ID. And if you have it saved as a contact, you know it's from SoCo Alert. So getting into the details of the exercise, there were at least 200 residents who participated on that day, June 19th. And this is based on the survey responses that we received, as well as a number of vehicles that were counted at the Center for the Arts. So overall, it was a great turnout, and awesome participation by the community. Many residents had the opportunity to get additional information from various organizations on general preparedness, as well as pet and large animal preparedness there from the Halter Project. So I want to extend thanks to them for participating. The Sheriff's Office was also able to distribute dozens of their evacuation tags, and we at the Department of Emergency Management were able to distribute information on the NOAA weather radios, as well as distribute and hand out cases of the MREs, the meals ready to eat, as well as provide information on SoCo Alert. So overall, we do consider the exercise to be a success, and there are some things that we did learn and take away from this exercise, as well as the one from June 5th at Fitch Mountain, that will help us in the planning process for future evacuation exercises as we look into 2022. So real quick, just a few of those, and I'll turn it over to Chief Lunardi. I want to make sure that to let residents know that if we are having a pre-registration, that they do that in order to receive that exercise message in the event that we don't use the full SoCo Alert contact database. In terms of the high-low sirens, that's one of the alerting methods that's used during an emergency, and not any system is foolproof or fail-safe. So the systems that we use are just tools in our toolkit that we have in order to send out alerts, and we'd use all of them if there was an emergency. So not a single one may reach you. So it's important to also have different methods that we can contact you. We have the SoCo Alert. You may not have cell service in your home, so NOAA weather radio may work instead to get you that redundancy in the alerting. So one of the also things that we're looking at is using locations that we do have identified within our emergency plan so that the evacuation is more realistic in having that destination to go. So this is a good lesson learned. But again, remember that no location is a default, the place to go during an emergency. It really does depend on the incident. Like I mentioned, the report was recently completed, so we're looking at having that made available on the county website here pretty soon. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Lunardi.
Thank you. Some of the lessons learned by Occidental Fire on the evacuation drill. We asked that our siren be set off from Redcom dispatch, and the first couple of times they tried it, it didn't work. It was a mislabeling in the computer system, which has been corrected. And so as of right now, Occidental Fire Department or Occidental Community is the only community with its evacuation siren in the Redcom dispatch, which can be alerted if we aren't there at station, or it can be done automatically. Second of all, we learned from the community members that our siren, as it goes up, the people could hear it, but once it reached maximum, to the top of its tone, it almost became, like it disappeared. And what we learned from most of the residents was they need to hear that up and down, the different tones of the siren. So we're working with the siren controller company to address that, and working towards the future, we'll probably have a 3-minute siren that would go up and down so that people can hear the different tones of it. So that's all I have on the evacuation. And good job by everybody that participated, and also the county for putting it on. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. And I'm having a little bit of difficulty with my camera right now. I apologize for that. But we're going to go ahead and transition over to questions. And I believe that Jason is going to be handling our Q&A.
So we're going to start at the top here. We've got 2 upvotes on this question from Marcy. Can you provide the information for the proposal on Church Street? Not sure if that's a TPW question or.
I'll answer for TPW since Johannes is not here. He said in his comments that he is in engineering study at this point. And so as soon as he has a final plan, we'll bring it to the community and review it again at that point. As you can see, parking is a very hot button issue in Occidental. And so it's really important. I know he's working with Chief Lunardi to ensure that there are some safe solutions, and also to figure out a way that will satisfy the needs for so many people. As you could see in the thread, there have been a lot of questions about why don't we have this parking lot open or that parking lot open. So the one-way proposal is designed to help safely increase that access, but we'll see what the engineering study comes back with.
We have a question from Kimberly. Will new sewer connections be approved? Is that going to be another TPW?
No, that would be for me. Yes, within the current service area of the district, if there could be new service connections within the existing service area of the Occidental County Sanitation District, which is pretty limited just really to the town. Other connections outside of the districts would not be approved unless they can show that they have a failing septic system that they cannot fix on their own. Then they can apply to connect. And if they were to be accepted, they could not increase their property use over what was pre-existing.
Next question is from Matt. What are the stages of a discretionary project such as the third and church proposal before a final decision gets made? What stage is this project in, and is there a potential date for finalization of approval?
I think that was just answered.
Oh,
Johannes has that in engineering at this point, and as soon as it comes out of engineering, then we will be disseminating that plan and sharing it at that point.
This question is for Jorge. Many of us registered for the evacuation drill and so-called alert, but didn't get any alerts.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for that question. Yeah, it could depend if the residents registered on the county website prior to the 5 p.m. cutoff on the Thursday before, which I believe was the 17th, July or June 17th. They should have received that alert. In the report there. It references those who say they pre-registered but didn't receive the alert. We did some follow-up in the system to review what the connection status or what the results of those notifications were. If folks did not do that, of course, like I mentioned, for the exercise, we didn't use the public emergency contact database. So if they are registered in SoCo Alert, that's great. You know, the information is still there. But again, the contact list that we used and uploaded the Friday the day before was those who had registered by that 5 p.m. cutoff registration line, and that was done in order to give us time to upload the information into the system, and if there were any errors or kickbacks, we could follow up with the residents and try to get the communication out there to ensure that the contacts were correct in the system, so Saturday morning they would receive that alert. But that could be something to follow up with here in the office. Feel free to contact us here at DEM.
Next question is, why isn't the Historical Society part of this conversation? This is a historical district.
That's an intriguing question. We put out a wide net and asked many different people in our that we know in Occidental for agenda items and for participation, and asked for people to share the information about this coming up, and did not hear anything from the Historical Society. But I've also, I don't know about the rest of my team, but I don't know the Historical Society, and we'd certainly welcome hearing more from them. Any of us can be reached at District 5 at sonoma-county.org. I'll put that in the chat as well, and feel free to have the Historical Society reach out to us, and would love to start a conversation.
I agree completely with Elise. I would love to welcome their participation in the future.
Next question is, this is a question that comes to the Occidental Community Council regularly. Can or should we assume that if the county is taking up some study or potential proposal that impacts Occidental, that we'll hear about through the Occidental Community Service District? Or since these town halls are rare, how exactly are we supposed to be apprised of issues that impact our town?
Is it okay if I take that one? We have a sort of a tree of ways that we communicate. The first is Supervisor Hopkins puts out a newsletter regularly that talks about various issues that are going on. There's also, we also have open communications through, as I said, District 5. We also post things on Facebook, but when it comes to something weighty along the lines of these particular issues, we communicate through various ways. The first is that we call small group meetings. So we have had a Greyton and Occidental sewer meeting recently. We also had a small group meeting around parking. We used to participate in the Bohemian Corridor meetings, but those have gone by the wayside. If you have any community meetings like the CSD meeting or the Fawn's wonderful nonprofit meetings, community meetings, please feel free to invite us. We're happy to come out and to update people. So when we have a particular issue that seems like a hot button issue or something of importance, we do schedule meetings in town or communicate with the CSD, the community center, the community group of Fawns and the Bohemian Corridor group. If there are other ways to get information out, please let us know. We're happy to use any and all channels that we can find in order to get information out to people.
The next question is from Michael. Michael, is there a plan to underground power at the same time the pipeline goes in? You're on mute, Michael.
Isn't that the saying of 2020? You're on mute. Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's something I think it would be great to reach out to PG&E. I know they have in their budget to do the underground power lines, and I think it would be great to do both somewhat at the same time. You wouldn't want those in the same trench, but I think it would make sense to, if possible, to coordinate those two activities so that one project would go in, and then whichever one goes first, one goes in, then the second goes in, and then you do a full road repaving afterwards. So I think it would make a lot of sense to coordinate that and to also to do some outreach to PG&E to see if that is on their list.
A couple more for you, Michael. First, will the sewer rates increase after the pipeline is hooked up? And will the public have an opportunity to get feedback about the sewer feasibility study?
Yeah, those are good questions. So the hope is that sewer rates in Occidental will actually go down after the pipeline is hooked up, but that is one of the reasons why we're doing the feasibility study there. It's looking at two of the things it's focusing on. One is what would be the cost, the physical possibility, which actually I can share so far there. We haven't found any fatal flaws. The consultants haven't found any big obstacles to the actual physical construction of the pipeline. They're working now to identify what the cost of constructing the pipeline would be. And then the last one of the other tasks will be to identify what will it cost to operate the Occidental County Sanitation District and the Greyton Community Services District after the pipeline is constructed, and what the revenues would be. So again, the hope is that the rates would actually go down, and but that is one of the reasons why we're doing the feasibility study. And we will be having, as I mentioned earlier, we've already had one public meeting on kind of a kickoff on the feasibility study. We'll be having another one once we get some of the draft results. And at that time, yes, we would be open to receiving input. So thank you for the questions.
The next question we have is, how do we apply for the matching grant program you mentioned in response to Sandy DeVries concerning permanent public restrooms? How much is that funding?
Yes, so we allocate $4 million for the entire program every other year. So the next funding cycle will kick off in early 2022. Applications will be made available on Ag and Open Spaces website. I can put my email address in there as well, Jennifer Kuzmar, to respond to that question. And applications can be submitted electronically or hand delivered to our office at the due date. We haven't set those dates for 2022 yet. And restrooms are certainly eligible as a part of a larger open space project for public recreation or whatever the purpose might be that would meet the intent of the program there.
The next question is, when will we see the final report from the drill?
Hi again, Jorge Rodriguez. we're working with, we've got to put the request in to County Communications as well as County ISD for the website to get it online and make sure it finds its home there. So look for it on the County DEM website. Won't be this week, but in the near future for sure, since again, the report was just recently completed. So it'll be online.
I believe this one will be for you. Are there any potential open space properties that you can share with us? Makes sense. Okay, I'll move along here. We're getting a lot of comments about not being able to hear the sirens during the drill.
I could probably answer for Occidental Fire. Our siren is a 5 horsepower siren. It was never, considered for this type of job. And the size of the siren that we would have to put on there for the entire area would have to be similar to Greyton's, which is a 10 horsepower siren. And, I think it would just be extremely loud in the downtown area, but that's something that could be looked into the future of a completely separate evacuation siren from the normal call siren that we set off on our calls. There was issues with people not hearing some of the high-lows on the sheriff's vehicles. And there was some discussion of the speaker locations on the vehicles. If they're behind the hood, behind the grill, maybe they weren't being heard as if they were maybe on the roof of the vehicle or out in the open where they could be heard better. But that was some of the different discussions we've had so far.
Okay, thank you. Through here, I'm trying to peel through the comments. People are just submitting some thank yous and comments. If we could just restrict it to questions, that'd be great. Let's see.
I had a question about compost bins that actually I could jump in on. I see that Tom asked, there are no compost bins at the Occidental Farmers Market or any other night in that parking lot among other public spaces where they're needed in the county. Why not, and how can this be remedied? Who decides? And interestingly, we actually are currently implementing a brand new state regulation that is going to mandate green waste collection throughout large swaths of Sonoma County. It seems like very few neighborhoods will be able to opt out, even ones that are very, hard to reach, where the service would be pretty expensive. And so that is definitely something that we can look at as this is implemented in partnership with Recology, who provides our waste services. So my promise is to follow up with Recology on that one and see if that's potentially a service that could be added in the downtown area.
David, I have a question for you, if you are available. Is there any authorized usage of the community center at this time?
Not at this time. We're still waiting for an operator who can show us the insurance and who can really take the reins from us. I know there's one boot camp that we're still trying to track down for some insurance and special use permits, but in the interim, while the actual operations of the interior of the community center are closed, if folks are interested in doing something outdoors, they're welcome to contact our reservations office 565-2041 and do a special use permit so we can make sure the folks that are out there are safe and are following the criteria for for events in public properties.
Next is, would the county help with the cost of an Occidental evacuation siren that Chief Lenardi mentioned?
That would be something I couldn't answer. That would be more for department executives and management, but it's certainly something I'll take back and let them know that the question was posed and have those conversations with the chief on their end, on the management side for the department.
Yeah, and I can just add that, we have received a number of requests actually from the chief for different funding opportunities that we're currently reviewing. So we do have a couple of sources of discretionary fund within the 5th district, which would be the tourism impact funds and our community investment funds. And so, we're kind of reviewing the amount of money that we have and the requests, and we will be working with the chief to prioritize based on our limited resources, what we can help him out with. So.
Thank you, Supervisor Hopkins.
Mike, question for you. Where will the sewer FM terminate in Greyton?
That's still being studied. We're looking at a potential termination point at the treatment plant or at the west end of their collection system.
Next question, it is in regards to cannabis. Residents are concerned about cannabis grow's effect on water resources, and also one application is near our school and CYO camp.
So, Leo, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to chime in?
Why don't you start off the answer? And I did some research on it as well, because Elise mentioned this may come up, but go ahead and set the context, please.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm not sure about this particular one, but I can tell you that number one, when cannabis applications move through, water availability is actually one of the top criteria that's considered, and we need to reach a basically mitigated negative declaration, which means that we need to essentially have no negative impacts with respect to water use on the groundwater supplies for neighboring communities. The other piece of information that's important to know is that we are currently launching an environmental impact review process for a large scale update to our cannabis program. So, it's great to raise these kinds of concerns and to ensure that they're incorporated into the process going forward. Leo, anything to add on the specific site? Because I'm not familiar with this particular project.
Yeah, I checked in with the cannabis team about this project. This project was approved by the BZA in June. It's the identifying number is UPC 19-0011. And so I asked what the current process is, and basically that the permit comes with a lot of conditions of compliance. So the site is now moving through a process where they have to demonstrate that they're meeting all of the conditions put on the project by Permit Sonoma. And so they wouldn't be able to proceed until Permit Sonoma verified that they've met all of those conditions. I pulled the staff report from that, so I can upload it into the file if people want that information. It's super long. It's like a 90-something page document, but it has a lot of information about the site specifics. And I know that people have mentioned the fact that it's pretty close to the CYO camp. What I remember from past research is that it should be a pretty significant distance away from the camp where it wouldn't be like visible or nobody would know that it's there. The parcel's well over 100 acres that this proposal's for. So I'll go ahead and upload that, so anybody who's interested in the details should be able to pull it. I think I can do that via the chat functionality. I'll also post the link to the general cannabis page with, there's 8 upcoming workshops that are for the kind of forward-looking policy development. Lynda mentioned trying to scope the project for the EIR. And so there's 4 different hearings that are being held twice each I think they're called visioning workshops because it's a chance for people to really focus in on what they want the county to be covering when they're doing this analysis going forward. So I'll pop those all into the chat.
Next is, why are property owners who do not mow weed whack along the vegetation on the roadside by their properties not warned that they are responsible for this? There are many that actually expect the county to do this for them, including some on the Fire Safe Occidental Committee. I reported an area needing clearing on Lower Joy Road on a blind curve to SoCo Reports. Several weeks later, they replied it's too hot and dangerous to do. But in reality, this week has been cool, 56, 60 degrees and foggy and wet at 7 a.m. So it could be done, just has to be done in the morning. You're on mute, Elise.
It sounds as though there are two parts to this question. The first is you reported this to SoCo Reports, and thank you so much for doing that. The vegetation along the roadway is best reported to SoCo Report it. They do during hot periods stop mowing because they're stop the mowing crews and do other parts. I know that in Occidental it's often not as hot as other places, but they do just go to other work during hot times in the county, but it is on their list. You also ask in there whether or not property owners need to be alerted. There is an ordinance 13A, which is that property owners do need to take care of vegetation on their property. I've just put the link in the chat box that gives the page and the place to report that. If you see vegetation problems on private property, you can send it into the fire inspector who will come out and take a look at it. Is there anything to add to that, Chief Lenardi?
Nothing except for there is the possibility that since we're in a state responsibility area and CAL FIRE is responsible, they could actually go out and inspect the property with the property owner and, offer suggestions and, have a conversation with them about that too. So that's another option to try that.
Yeah, the fire inspectors do a great job. They come and they go through your property. It's actually a good idea to ask for it for yourself, to have the, we've had a number of people tell us how helpful it is to have fire inspectors come in and walk through their house. It's a free service, not through their house, through the yard. And it's a free service, and they point out a lot of things that can help you with home hardening.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions regarding wineries and water and cannabis. I'll read them both now. One is, wells are drying up, but local wineries are planting new grapes. Look on Coleman Valley Road. Permits for this need to be revoked. And then additionally, another question is, as you know, whoa, that question just... here we go. What about cannabis grows and the direct pooling of water from Salmon Creek? What can be done when you hear the pumps running and your neighbor is drawing water for their under the radar cannabis business?
So I can take a couple of those, and I want to kind of bifurcate the water questions into their land use questions, and then there's also sort of the power to regulate water use, which does not actually reside with the county. So I'm not trying to pass the buck here. But it really truly is either the state who actually is in charge of water rights, and currently they are in the process of actually revoking water rights because there is no available water in the upper Russian River watershed, and are looking at similar curtailments, although probably not as severe, below the confluence of Dry Creek in the lower Russian watershed that we are expecting the state to issue in early August. So they regulate that. Then also, independent of the county, we have groundwater sustainability agencies, which are active in Sonoma County. We have 3 active in Sonoma County, in the Santa Rosa Plain, in Petaluma, and in Sonoma Valley. And those actually, for the first time ever in the history of the state of California, are tasked with regulating groundwater and ensuring sustainable supplies. Much of West County because it's part of the Wilson Grove Formation, does not lie in any of those sort of identified groundwater sustainability agencies. Although some of it does lie within the purview of the state as it pertains to riparian rights in the Russian River. So that's kind of how water is regulated. Obviously, sort of the major tool that we have in our toolkit at the county is the regulation of land use. Any kind of a discretionary permit is required as part of compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act to look at water as a critical resource. So if you're talking about new wineries, for instance, right, that's a use permit, it's discretionary, it would go through that kind of environmental review. Right now, VESCO, which is what the ordinance that governs the planting of vineyards, is not a discretionary process. It is actually a ministerial process, which was developed partly to sort of comply and conform with the Sonoma County Right to Farm ordinance, which is also active in Sonoma County, essentially allowing you to conduct agriculture on agriculturally zoned properties. So that's kind of, we don't really have that tool in our toolkit in terms of halting things in the midst of a drought. But I would also note that the drought is really impacting Sonoma County unevenly. There are aquifers that are totally great. And, literally, I've actually talked to landowners who have springs that are still running on their property in the midst of the drought. Other areas like Valley Ford and Two Rock, where there's a very fractured aquifer, have struggled and their wells have gone dry and their ponds have gone dry and they're having to truck in water for their animals. On the side of illicit cannabis grows and kind of the impact on our water of that, please turn them in, right? You can do that through SoCo Report It, and we can go out and make sure that they are not illegally drawing water from our creeks and streams, which is a really dangerous thing to do right now, obviously, given the drought. So kind of help us help you. And those complaints, by the way, can be kept anonymous if you're concerned about, retaliatory behavior.
Lynda, one other thing I would just add, I had just uploaded those conditions of approval for the project on Bohemian Highway that people were asking questions about, that cannabis project. And I'll go ahead and also paste into the chat and read off some of the language around water conservation that are, this is one condition in their 12 pages of conditions of approval, but this is the portion that's specific to water that Permit Sonoma has put in place. So there's a water conservation plan that's required. It says a water conservation plan for the operation shall be submitted for review and approval by Permit Sonoma. The plan shall include all reasonably feasible measures to reduce water demand and enhance water resource recovery to the maximum extent feasible. Measures that must be evaluated include installation of ultra-low flow fixtures, best available conservation technologies for all water uses, rainwater and stormwater collection systems, and gray water reuse. The approved water conservation plan shall be implemented by the applicant, operator, and verified by staff prior to issuance of the use permit certificate or operation of the use. I've also seen as part of the permit process that I think that all the applicants have to complete paperwork that allows the county to inspect wells and their water usage. I think it's an easement requirement. And for people who really want to get into the details around the cannabis permitting and those water pieces, you can go through the county's cannabis website and see what the current processes are. And then you can also weigh in on what you want to see in the future.
Next question, are there any plans to put up high fire risk area signs along the roads?
I don't know if I can take this or not, but Occidental Fire doesn't have any plans to do anything like that, but our fire safe councils have gotten grants for address signs, and I would support in some of the key intersections around our community, putting signs like that up, of something reflective, a metal that will last a long time. And that would kind of keep people aware, especially as people drive through our community that don't know the area and don't know the fire risks they're in. Kind of a gentle reminder to them that they are in a high fire danger area. But unless anybody in Fire Safe Council want to chime in, that'd be great.
And, with the support of the chief, that's absolutely something that I would support as well. And I do want to mention that I believe that during budget hearings, the Board of Supervisors put some funds into a bucket that could potentially fund those kinds of signs. So I don't know if maybe it would make sense for, some of those Fire Safe Council representatives to reach out to Jorge or someone from the Department of Emergency Management to figure out how those funds are going to be dispersed. Because I think there was a request from East County for some funding for signage. And so we said, hey, this is a great idea for a countywide program. Let's put some additional funding in the bucket. We also put funding in a bucket for eucalyptus removal, which may be of interest to some folks. And the idea was, yes, we can go after eucalyptus trees that are within county right of way, but we could also potentially provide some grants to homeowners who might have eucalyptus stands on their property, recognizing that those are, just extremely oily trees that go up like torches and then can create spot fires quite a distance out. So those are a couple of other funding opportunities to keep your eye on.
So this next question, potentially DPW. So would this one-lane road proposal lead to a public restroom that is a daily issue in Occidental and has been like forever?
I think those are two different questions. The question of the public restroom and it hasn't come up today, but there have also been requests for a park from especially Chris Martin at the CSD and Howard Station. And that's why we invited Jen Kuzmar to talk about the matching grant program in order to be able to give you guys a path forward to find some funding and match that funding and work on that project with the community and the county working together.
And I do believe, and Jen, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but if there was a plan for a park that included restrooms, the restrooms could potentially be funded, right? So if they were looking at creating a downtown park with that kind of amenities, that would be eligible for funding.
Correct. Yes.
So that's an opportunity. So if you are really looking for that public restroom in downtown and there is energy around that park, I think it's a great opportunity to start planning for when those grant applications open early next year. And I know that Jen will be happy to follow up with any groups that are interested in that kind of a project.
Next is, when the Altamont opened, it was to be a store deli, not a full apartment building. What is being done about the illegal apartments with residents that will add to the parking problem?
I don't think any of us can really speak to that. That would be, a question for if there is an illegal use of a property, it would need to go to code enforcement to be considered. And so if someone is concerned, that would be a route to take. Also, before going to code enforcement, I always just encourage talking to your neighbor or, having conversations in the community before taking that route. But I don't know anything about that. I don't know if anyone else on the call does.
Okay. This next question is, each year PG&E comes by and puts up orange, green, yellow tags on small branches and then never comes back to do anything. How can you help get them to actually do tree brush control? Take a ride down Joy or Bittner Road as examples.
So I'm happy to jump into that unless Chief Lenardi wants to say anything, but I can just say that it is extremely difficult to get PG&E to do anything. And actually sometimes what they do, which I think is worse, is they cut down trees and shrubs and bushes, and then they actually just leave them dead piled on somebody's property. So we have been, pinging them regularly on a case-by-case basis for these issues. And we hope that they'll be more responsive in the future. But if there are particular stretches that you have concerns about, feel free to reach out to our office about it and we can relay it to our PG&E contact person who we've, in the past 3 years, I feel like we've gone through 3 or 4 or 5 contact people. So they have a lot of turnover at their organization right now. And it sometimes is a little bit more challenging to get follow-up. It was really awesome when for a while, Todd Durham was a Forestville resident who worked for a long time in fire services, was a representative, but he's no longer with PG&E. So we're faced with the changing faces again.
We do encourage you, though, to reach out to our office if you are encountering issues with PG&E. I mean, our current representative is responsive in terms of getting back to us. She isn't always able to make the action happen, but we can push, and she's offered us a number of different kind of phone numbers and ways to try to get information and to highlight specific issues. So I know that we have gotten some of that brush that is improperly left by their contractors removed in the past. And if that continues to be an issue, provide us your full address information and photograph ideally, and then we can absolutely escalate on your behalf.
Next, when we come up with these ideas for downtown Occidental, are you taking into account what the residents that live downtown have to deal with?
I'd like to say that's why we're here, right, is to have the conversation with the community. So would love to have additional feedback and additional thoughts. Elise, do you have anything to add?
Absolutely. When we started talking about this, we started talking about it because it was a request from the community, and we have had multiple small group meetings and planned this town hall around it, as Supervisor Hopkins said. So we are making every effort to get the word out and to have these conversations, and are happy to have more.
What is the status of the closed abandoned Union motel, not hotel?
I was wondering the same thing when I drove through the other day. I'm like, who owns this and what's going on here? At least it seems like such a prime property. I'm afraid that that's private property. So unless somebody else knows the answer to that, we could always ask Permit Sonoma.
And we have one final question from Janae. At least you were typing an answer, or should I go ahead and read that one?
Why don't you go ahead and read it, because it's been a question that's come up about 5 times. We might as well repeat it again.
Since the county is considering creating a one-way street to create more parking for the inn, will they be asking the Union Hotel to open their parking lot when they are open and having large events? There is a serious issue with garbage and delivery trucks on Mina Street because they can no longer turn around.
You know, the question originally came from Occidental Inn, but we have been receiving requests for parking solutions from just about everyone. I know that the farmers market creates some issues, but also many of the other downtown businesses have asked for more parking, and that's one of the reasons why that was addressed. It was an idea that came up from the community. The Union Hotel is a private property, and when this came up, and especially when they're taking up the parking spaces with the open space, Johannes of Transportation and Public Works spoke with the Union Hotel and said, you know, we need to offset those parking spaces. And so the Union Hotel has opened up their lot to balance off the number of parking spaces that are taken up by their parklets. So it is open to the number of parking spaces that they have taken up in the front of their lot. They have kept it shut at night, and they've kept the other parts shut because their concern is that they will attract encampments, and there has been illegal behavior. However, I'm not here to defend or approve of, and none of us is, the Union Hotel's choices. It is their private lot. And so if you're having problems with trucks turning around or issues there, I would suggest you talk with them.
And that seems to be the final question that we've had come in.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for taking your time this evening. Really appreciate all of our panelists sharing information from the community, and appreciate the opportunity to receive the information and the questions from the community as well. So with that, thank you, Jason, for running a smooth Zoom meeting. Always appreciate it, and I hope everyone has a really good evening and go catch a little more of the Olympics or something.